Welcome back to the Doves Only Empire YouTube account, where I am essentially going to be spending all of my fall coming out with these outlandish college football rankings to prove once and for all that these AP poll and even the college football rankings, they don't matter in the grand scheme of things, and that it is so hard to determine what college football teams are good and what college football teams are bad just based off of, let's be honest, a handful of games, right? My voice is a little bit gone, and that's just because I just came back from watching the Eagles game against the Chiefs. So, yeah, that's, got the jersey on still. I thought that would kind of, help you figure out why I sound like crap, to be honest. Again, I am not making these rankings to say, oh, this is what's right, this is what they should be doing. No. I am purposefully making a rankings that I don't necessarily agree with at all in the slightest, and purposefully making it outlandish and making it out there to, again, prove the idea that these rankings don't matter, or at least the way that they do it right now definitely doesn't matter. Because again, you are having a group of 160 plus journalists coming together and them just spouting who they think the best teams are. And there have been multiple times where they have been wrong time in and time out. And then as we look further down the line, you look at the college football playoff rankings as well. Those are loosely based off of the AP poll as well. So those also have no sort of validity behind them, just because, again, it's all based on personal opinion, not what's right in front of you and the statistics that realistically tell you which teams are good and which teams are bad, especially when they have conferences that split them up where they all match up against one another respectfully. Yesterday, I uploaded the video before the AP poll came out, again, basically trying to determine what I thought the Associated Press was going to come out with. And again, this is supposed to be an outlandish list to begin with. I am not here to be like, oh, this is what the rankings should be. No, I do not believe that. It is just the idea that these rankings, when they come out, everyone is always talking about them. And the reason why they do it that way is so that they can have these talk shows where people talk about them for hours and hours and hours and hours. And not only that, but when it comes to next weekend, when you're trying to promote a show for a specific game, it's a lot easier to do that when you've got a very high number next to these teams rather than no number at all and just promoting a blanket game between two teams. Again, this is how it was first introduced. There was a national championship that was basically tried to be decided between three different teams, and they came out with this ranking system. Since then, they've used it to push more views, they've used it to cause controversy, and now it's come to a point where everyone is always talking about it, but for the wrong reasons. Because in reality, we shouldn't even be talking about these rankings. These rankings shouldn't even exist. But I digress. We're here. I made a video about it yesterday. If you haven't watched it, feel free to go watch it. I go into these a little bit more. We're just going to blow through these so that you know what's going on. But I made an in-depth video yesterday talking about why I think the AP poll is going to put certain teams where they are. So make sure to go to my channel and watch that video from yesterday. But today we're going to be comparing what I came up with yesterday to what the AP poll actually came up with for week 4 of the rankings. Now, at the very top, Penn State and Ohio State, I made the point that usually this is the time in the season where they will want to kind of change that number 1 spot. Obviously, Ohio State took that number 1 spot at the beginning of the season, but let's be honest, that was kind of bound to happen because they were at home. As we've seen, Texas is not as dominant, especially not as dominant as they were last year, and that's really saying something because Arch Manning, it's a whole identity crisis, like I mentioned yesterday, and they're still going through that. So I thought that realistically we would have that, let's put a new number 1. And I mean, Penn State is more than qualified, especially after their win against Villanova, which was, a 45 plus point win. Or I thought Georgia would pass Oregon after they switched positions last week, and I thought LSU would drop just in front of Oregon from the number 3 spot just because, if you're only beating Florida by 10 points after they've already been exposed by South Florida, then you must not be a good team, and that's not a quality win, right? Then I had teams like Texas, Florida State, and Illinois. I mentioned yesterday how this 7, 8, 9 spot was very intricate for me and how I could see these kind of interchanging with one another. I could see Texas maybe dropping 1 in the rankings just because their win against UTEP wasn't a quality win. And then obviously Florida State, as outlandish as it is, because let's be honest, they should not be in the top 10 whatsoever, because as we've seen from this Alabama team, it's genuinely nothing to write home about. And that 1 win just bolstered them into not only the top 25, but the top 15, and they've just been taking advantage of the teams in front of them. And the thing is that this was realistically a huge jump from where they were last week, and being inside the top 10, you've got a decent start, but come on, seriously? Then you got Texas A&M, who beat Notre Dame. Obviously, a great win. I call it the biggest upset of the weekend because it wholeheartedly was. Notre Dame at Notre Dame. Texas A&M did a great job, even though both teams had their blenders like I knew they would. And then Ole Miss beating Arkansas. Like, when you have the argument of quality win, I'm looking at the AP poll. They're like, oh yeah, you're playing Arkansas. Yes, you're at home, but you're playing Arkansas. Quality win, especially because it was a back and forth game. Then I precisely put Alabama in this 12 spot because I thought that would be the big headline of, oh, well, right now, as it stands, Alabama is like the first team out of the college football playoffs. And that would be a huge talking point for all of the talk shows that are going to be going on this week. And then under them, Iowa State. This is kind of the big reason why I had Alabama jumping Iowa State, and the same thing with Texas A&M and Ole Miss. All those teams jumping Iowa State just because they played Arkansas State. Realistically, they should have handled business, and they did not. It ended up being a very close game against the Red Wolves of Arkansas State. And then as we come to the bottom half of the rankings, Texas Tech, Indiana, Utah. Again, these are just teams that are just kind of moving up with one another. I thought that they would look at Texas Tech's win over Oregon State as more quality than the wins of Indiana against Indiana State, which was obviously 73 zip, and then Utah over Wyoming, where they didn't even get to 35 points. Then I included Vanderbilt, who were non-ranked last year, but they got non-ranked last week, but they got the upset over South Carolina. Then Missouri, then Michigan, then Auburn, the teams who were, basically on the very brink of being, left out of last week's top 25. They naturally move up because of all the teams that lost. Then you've got Georgia Tech and their upset over Clemson because, again, Clemson is not the greatest team in the world. So I initially had Georgia Tech where Vanderbilt is, and then vice versa. But after thinking about it, Vanderbilt on the road at South Carolina, yeah, they're probably going to put them not only higher than Georgia Tech, but into that kind of top 20 spot. And then Mississippi State, again, a great win, handled business, did what they need to do, scored a lot of points. USC, same thing. They did a great job over the weekend. And then South Carolina, yes, while they did lose, I still kind of see them kind of in the rankings because, again, it would be an insane drop for them to go all the way out of the rankings. And again, the AP poll loves to keep these SEC teams in. Speaking of, Tennessee right there at the bottom, barely staying into the rankings, even though, again, realistically, like that game against Georgia, yes, Georgia's a tough opponent, but you are at home, and it's not like you haven't done this before. So the fact that they struggled as much as they did and ended up losing that game in overtime, I thought really spoke volumes, and I feel like it wasn't really deserved to take them out of the rankings. But I'm looking at teams, again, like Mississippi State, like USC, even a team like Auburn and Michigan, and thinking, yeah, realistically, I would probably take one of those teams over Tennessee if it's at a neutral site, right? And again, this is when Tennessee was at home and they still lost, which is obviously why Georgia is so far up in the rankings. I mean, just from this picture alone, even if you're not a college football fan, it should be like, whoa, like, not exactly far out here. Okay, let's go through it. First of all, at the top, Ohio State and Penn State didn't end up changing places, but the important thing to note is that they both have a bye week next week, which means that what needs to happen, and again, they didn't move LSU, which I thought was interesting. I thought they'd move them, but they did not. They kept them at that 3 spot. But like I said, they would have Miami jump up in the rankings. They would also have Georgia replace Oregon, and they would drop Oregon down, even though they won their game, and they dropped them down 2 spots to make room for, ironically, an SEC team and then an ACC team who beat an SEC team. Like, it doesn't get more clear than this, guys. But again, Georgia and Oregon switching, who's top and who's bottom yet again is just criminal when, again, like, I understand that Georgia was definitely a great win against Tennessee. But when you're already 6th in the nation and you put Oregon 4th in the nation, there was no need to do that flipping around because now this just looks bad. Like, Oregon wins the game and they get punished by 2 spots. And not only that, but they get moved up from a Miami team, which beat a South Florida team when, let's be honest, that South Florida team shouldn't even been in the rankings because they just happened to play a Florida team that we know is bad, like we saw last week. We know is bad, but they happen to have the ranking next to their name. So it looks a lot better. When in reality, Florida is just not that good of a team. And again, you would see that if you watched that LSU-Florida game. And then under that, like, I was partly joking when I was all like, yeah, let's put Florida State into the top 10. And not only are they in the top 10, but if you look at my rankings, they are higher than what I had them at. I had them at 8. AP polls got them at 7. And again, this goes into the whole 7, 8, 9 spot. I can see Florida State, Texas, and Illinois being intertwined with one another. And that's exactly what happened. And again, it's still crazy to me that we have a one-loss team in the top 10 this early in the season. That is what's infuriating about this. But Texas at 8. Illinois, again, gets the brute end of it, and they don't move at all, probably because they think that their Big Ten win wasn't as good, even though they held Western Michigan to no points and scored 38. Like, I'm sorry, but Illinois does not have the offense to be scoring 38 points against any team, yet they did that. And their defense held them 2-0. Like, I don't know what else you could ask for. And now we're just jumping Florida State above them. Florida State did not play anyone. They did not play anyone. They had nothing to prove this week. There was no message about Florida State. And they move up 3 spots in the rankings, jump Texas, and jump Illinois. And even though Texas is a one-loss team, I might even take Texas to win a game if they were to play Florida State. But we move on. There's Texas A&M. I knew they would get bolstered up in the rankings, and I mean, I got that one spot on. Illinois and Texas A&M were exactly the same. Then after that, again, Oklahoma, Iowa State, Ole Miss. I'm kind of shocked that they have Ole Miss behind Iowa State, and that Iowa State is still ahead of these kinds of teams, because again, that was a very, very narrow victory against Arkansas State. So I thought that this would be a perfect excuse to be like, oh yeah, like let's put, you know, a few more SEC teams above the Big 12 team and have Ole Miss up there and Alabama up there. But it is good to see Oklahoma, after their win against Temple, they move up 2 spots. Same thing with Iowa State. They still move up 2 spots nonetheless, but Ole Miss and Alabama going up 5, of course, and Ole Miss going up 4 spots. Again, this Alabama-Wisconsin game, nothing to write home about. I don't think that it warranted 5 spots, but then again, I had them at 12. And the fact that I had them only 2 spots higher than what the rankings did is, again, very, very concerning. And then this is just cream of the crop. Cream of the crop AP poll. I genuinely can't believe that I didn't sniff this out, but Tennessee don't move. They don't move in the rankings. They lose a very close, winnable game at home to Georgia, and they don't move in the rankings. And now we have one more one-loss team in the rankings that genuinely doesn't. And I thought I was being like pretty nice. I thought that maybe they would kick him out entirely, but that SEC bias, you love to see it. SEC sells the views, and they know that. That's why ESPN is partnered with ABC and the SEC network. That's why that whole negotiation is there. And now Tennessee, again, loses a game, and they don't move. And ironically, are only 1 spot below Alabama. 1 spot below Alabama. Like, guys, these rankings don't matter. They genuinely don't, because stuff like this happens, we all get enraged, and then at the end of the day, nothing's going to get done about it. So instead of spending all our time and effort and energy complaining about what the rankings are, let's just look at them, laugh at them, and not worry about them. Because at the end of the day, they are so off. Like, Tennessee loses a game, and they don't. And I genuinely feel bad for these teams like Utah, Texas Tech, even Georgia Tech, and Indiana, and Vanderbilt. I feel bad for these teams, because it's like, wow, like, you guys lose an extra spot because a team, if you would have lost the same game, if Utah would have gone to Georgia, played all 4 quarters, gone to overtime, and lost by a field goal, they would have dropped out of the rankings. Same goes for Texas Tech, same goes for Georgia Tech, same goes for Indiana, same goes for Vanderbilt, same goes for Michigan, same goes for Auburn, same goes for all of these teams. If that had happened, and the case couldn't be proven more than Notre Dame. Notre Dame shot themselves in the foot. Like Texas A&M, it's hard to say that they won that game. And again, this 10 spot for Texas A&M, I put in as an outlandish pick because that was not a great game from them. Yes, it was very close, but Notre Dame muffed the extra point. That is not something a top 25 team does. I'm sorry. And especially when you're looking at the teams on the bubble like BYU, like TCU, and again, even like Mississippi State, which I had in my personal rankings thinking that the AP poll would just grace them with that much ability. They still don't get put. And instead, South Carolina gets dropped out, which makes absolutely no sense, keeping into consideration that this is now a 2-loss Notre Dame team. South Carolina lost one game and they're bounced. Notre Dame gets 2 opportunities against, let's be honest, 2 not so great teams. Like Texas A&M, not that great. And again, they had the opportunity to win the game and they blew it. It's the stuff like this that really shocks me. But it is good to see USC in there because I thought that they deserved it. And their offense is super hot. If you haven't watched the USC game, please do, because they have one of the best offenses in the league right now. But the good thing is that I'm glad we're not seeing Clemson in here. In fact, the fact that Clemson even received votes is still kind of crazy to me. They received 6 votes, which is insane. Like, guys, a 1-2 Clemson team that just lost to Georgia Tech had 6 votes to be in the top 25, to be listed as one of the best 25 schools for college football in the nation. Like, how crazy does that sound? We all watched Clemson play last week. They are not a top 25 team. They should not even be sniffing the top 25, but yet they still got 6 votes. So this is your rankings. We live in a world now where you can outright lose a game and not move a muscle just because of where you play, the kind of team that you are. Whereas again, you use that logic. Do the litmus test. Use that logic for any other team behind Tennessee. Any other team. Utah, Texas Tech, Michigan, Notre Dame, USC, Vanderbilt. Use that logic for any of these teams. Ask yourself, if they were at home, they played Georgia when all 4 quarters went to overtime and lost on a game-winning field goal. It's not even an argument of like, would they drop spots? Would they stay in the same spot like Tennessee did? And I guarantee you there's not a single one of you out there that goes, yeah, they stay in the same spot. It's just not happening at all, right? And now let's go back, look at these rankings, and see what the future matchups are going to be. Because next week is a bit of a sleeper, but because of these rankings, it looks semi-interesting when it genuinely isn't. You could say, let's say that Miami, like they did with South Florida, handle business and shut all the rumors out about, well, is this team good? Like they did with South Florida. You could arguably have them jump LSU if LSU don't get a sizable win against Southeast Louisiana, and even put them in that spot between Ohio State and Penn State because they don't play. I don't think that at this point, I don't think that they're going to be moving Ohio State. But like I said last week, there is that room for opportunity where they just want a new number 1 because they want a new number 1. There's no reasoning behind it. It just looks better. They do it a lot less in the college football playoff rankings, but in the AP poll, they do it a whole lot. Like there have been some pretty undeserving number 1s in the nations, and you know the ones that I'm talking about. These first 8 teams is genuinely a snooze fest. It's genuinely a snooze fest. I am not tuning into any of these games because none of them interest me. I see no kind of hope for an upset. The only upset that I would kind of see would be Texas against Sam Houston, and that's just because of how shaky they've been. But all of these teams are at home. All of these teams should be winning those games. And the thing is that even if one of those teams doesn't win those games, then it's all hell is going to break loose because of the bye weeks of Georgia and Penn State and Ohio State. And the fact that, again, we are having bye weeks this early on in the season is just crazy. Like, it is week 4. What could you possibly... You play once every week. I just don't get why we are already in bye week city right now. Then we've got Illinois, who's at 19 Indiana. So this is our first ranked matchup on the slate. And again, the thing is, think about it. If you were to get rid of the rankings, get rid of the numbers, and just say, oh yeah, Indiana is going to be playing at, or Illinois is going to be playing at Indiana today. That doesn't sound interesting. Like, it doesn't sound interesting. But when you say, oh, number 9 Illinois is playing number 19 Indiana, oh, like, now it sounds interesting. But in the grand scheme of things, like, this could definitely, like, be a bit of a coin flip because Indiana is at home and they've obviously grown such a huge following. And the thing is that Illinois isn't a true number 9 team. They haven't won a game that's been particularly, like, too impressive. But the thing is that they've just been naturally moving along with the rest of the group. And the thing is that the AP poll, like, sees that so much that they didn't even move them in the rankings last week. And they had a team like Florida State jump them. You know, it's that kind of stuff. So there's that. Then Texas A&M gets a bye week after beating Notre Dame. And I guarantee you that they're going to move up. Texas A&M are going to move up regardless. It doesn't matter if anyone in front of them loses, they are moving up. Simply put, they are going to move up. Oklahoma is going to be playing number 22 Auburn at home. Again, get rid of the numbers. Oh, Auburn is going to be playing at Oklahoma. Like, sure, maybe like 15 years ago, that would perk some ears, but now, not so much. The fact that Auburn are barely 22 and essentially only moved up 2 spots after all the chaos that happened last week really speaks volume. Like, they are behind Vanderbilt and they are behind Georgia Tech as well, who are just introduced into the rankings. A pretty interesting matchup between Ole Miss and Tulane. Now, unfortunately, Ole Miss are at home, and Tulane is, again, one of those teams that are kind of like scratching the top 25 and who desperately want to make it in. And they had a pretty decent matchup against Duke over the weekend, but clearly wasn't enough to put them in the rankings. So much so that, teams like Arizona State, who got bounced out of the rankings, South Carolina, South Florida, all got more votes than they did. So this is a big kind of proof spot for Tulane for the rankings. But at the end of the day, I think that because because Ole Miss draw that at home, it's not going to be a fun time for the Green Wave. This is another instance. Alabama on a bye week, just like Texas A&M. I guarantee you they move up in the rankings. It's just, and again, it doesn't even matter if anyone above them loses. It's not going to be one spot like it should. If a team does lose in front of them, it should just be one spot for Alabama. And if 2 teams lose, then it should be 2 spots for Alabama. But I guarantee you that even if a team doesn't lose, they will move up in the rankings. And if a team does lose in front of them, they will move more spots than the amount of teams that lost, just like Texas A&M will. You've got Texas Tech at Utah. Like, yes, this is a 16 versus 17 matchup. And that sounds so great. So great, however, that, that's where Big Noon Kickoff is going this week, right? Get rid of the numbers. Utah are playing Texas Tech. Again, maybe like 10 years ago, that would be an interesting matchup. But as of right now, it's just not. And again, these are 2 teams that have just been moving up with the pack. And realistically, I think that, Utah at home, very hard place to play. We have seen Texas Tech had a pretty decent game against Oregon State. I can't lie. But again, starting off, it was a very slow start for them, and it shocked me to begin with. And I think that slow start, Utah's going to take advantage, and they're going to win this game and naturally move up in the rankings. And instead of doing the thing that they did with Tennessee, they're not going to stay where they are. No, they're going to drop all the way down and out of the rankings. One of these teams is, again, but I think that Utah at home draw, you're naturally going to win this. Missouri, South Carolina. Now here's an interesting matchup that is definitely not going to get promoted as much as it should be. You've got 2 teams that are on the brink of being the top 25 teams in the nation. Obviously, South Carolina just got bounced, and now they're mad. They're mad, they're hungry, they want to get back in, and now they get a ranked matchup against what isn't necessarily considered one of the bigger SEC football schools. Like, football is Missouri is a pretty interesting draw here, and this is going to be a great game, and it's going to be at Missouri. So if South Carolina do win this game, they'll look at this as more valuable than, I'd argue like USC are playing Michigan State. If USC pummels Michigan State at home and South Carolina beats Missouri, South Carolina's going to jump USC in those rankings. And Notre Dame play Purdue. Purdue just lost to USC, and we saw how that went. So now Notre Dame, who again are an 0-2 team, they don't even have a win yet, are in the rankings. Like, guys, you don't even need to win games in order to be in the top 25. If you start high enough, and the thing is, like, take into consideration a Clemson team that is also 2 losses, but they have 1 win. They're already bounced out as well. Like, it's crazy to me that because Notre Dame has a pathetic bye week 2 weeks into the season, they get bailed out. Because let's be honest, if you move up, if Notre Dame lose their first game, then you take that momentum to lose at home against Texas A&M, they are getting bounced. But because they have a bye week on the second week of the college football schedule, hey, it looks a teeny bit better. No, it does not. 2 losses is 2 losses. And the way that you lost both of those games, I'm sorry, there is no saving that. Yes, they are both ranked matchups, but on both occasions, you had an opportunity to win the game, and you shot yourself in the foot both times. Like, that is on no one but you, and you should face the repercussions of that and be outside of the top 25. But we still favor them. And the thing is, what makes it even worse is that they're not even in a conference. They could play whoever, and now they're playing a Big Ten school like Purdue. Like, they're not even playing a good Big Ten school. They are playing Purdue. So they start the season with an ACC team that, may or may not take it all the way. And this is, again, an ACC, a conference that genuinely is hard to decipher if they're good or not. Like, we see Clemson go all the way down. We see Miami doing super well. And now Georgia Tech are in the rank. Like, it's just so much going on. It's hard to decipher whether or not they're a good conference this year. And then not only that, but you play a, I feel like calling Texas A&M a subpar SEC school this year isn't really stretching it, because that's kind of what they are. But it just doesn't look like that because of these BS rankings. I think Missouri and South Carolina is a game to look out for that they're not going to promote as much because it's not a ranked matchup. They'll be promoting Oklahoma and Auburn because it's two SEC teams that are in the top 25. They're obviously promoting Texas Tech and Utah already with Big Noon Kickoff because it's two ranked teams, this time inside of the Big 12. Then you've got Indiana and Illinois, two Big 10 teams that, again, without those rankings, kind of sounds like a boring matchup. Don't even get me started on where College Game Day is going this week, because I bet you can guess where they are going. They are going to the Florida-Miami game in order to cover that, after they didn't go to South Florida and Miami. So when it's an American conference team against an ACC team, we're good. But you throw in an SEC team in the mix, okay. Now we are interested. Not to mention that they just came off of an SEC matchup last week between Georgia and Tennessee. Granted, that one was valid, but this one, not so much. Because as we have seen, Florida are just not that team. And Miami are at home again. Like, if that doesn't speak volumes to you, I don't know what will. The one that everyone's going to be looking out for is who Miami is playing this week. Like, they basically said, okay, who's the top ranked team right now? Okay, Ohio State. Who are they playing this week? Oh, they don't play anyone. Okay, well, we can't go to that game. Okay, well, Penn State, they're second best. Who are they? Oh, they're not playing anyone either. Okay, well, then who's the third best team? Oh, LSU. Oh, yeah. Who are they playing? We haven't done LSU. Oh, they're playing Southeast Louisiana. Oh, well, okay, who's next? Who's next? Oh, well, Miami's playing games. Oh, who are they playing against? Oh, they're playing Florida. They're playing an SEC. Ooh, yeah, let's do that. You keep going down the list. Georgia not playing anyone. Oregon versus Oregon State. Yeah, there's rivalry there, and going to a rivalry game this early would be pretty interesting. But, look at Pitt and West Virginia last week. They, didn't even bat a second eye to that, and they instead went to Tennessee, Georgia, which, again, is valid. Don't get me wrong. But this week, it gets real hard, right? You go all the way down the rankings, and the first ranked matchup that you get is Illinois at Indiana. And, again, even College Game Day knows that if you were to remove those rankings, man, no one's turning on that TV. If I'm being honest, it may be a good game, but no one cares about it going into it. That's just one of the things where you're like, oh, like Illinois got upset by Indiana. Wow. But again, that's probably just because they have that home field advantage, like most things in college football. But that's going to do it for the video today. Again, make sure to like, subscribe, put down in the comment section your opinions, what, you think the AP poll did wrong or right. But again, we want to get to that point where we don't care. We just tune this stuff out, guys. Because, again, it's hard to decipher bad teams and it's hard to decipher good teams. And this ranking proves that the AP poll is just willing to do anything. Like, I put Florida State in the top 10 as a joke. I moved Oregon down 2 spots as a joke. I put a team like Tennessee down to 25 as a generous kind of like they'll keep them in the rankings, not them staying in the exact same place. Like, my outlandish rankings weren't even outlandish enough, guys. Like, I feel like I got the top 10 pretty much solid. LSU Miami moved where I didn't think they'd move. But other than that, pretty solid job in the top 10. And then outside of that, it's just people moving up. I thought Alabama would be a bit higher, but 14 does kind of make sense. And again, now they have this bye week where I think them and Texas A&M have these bye weeks where I think that because they play no one, like we saw Florida State, who played absolutely no one, moved up 3 spots in the rankings, even though there weren't 3 teams ahead of them that lost. Texas was one of them. Texas did not lose, right? And the only other team outside of that, the only other team that lost was Notre Dame. And even they got to stay in the rankings as well. And then Clemson and South Carolina were the spots behind them, and they both got dished out, even though I thought that what I saw from South Carolina was, it was bad, don't get me wrong, but, to drop them that far is just, crazy. Like, yes, put Vanderbilt ahead of them because they just beat them, obviously, But to have them go lower than Tennessee after, again, what we've seen from Tennessee this season, like they should be moving together is all I'm saying. But the AP poll is clearly way more outlandish than I could ever be. But again, make sure to look on my social medias at Dubs Only Empire on Instagram and on TikTok, because I'll be going into these matchups a little more and talking about the meaning behind all of them. And then not only that, but setting up for next week and those ranking matchups. And then again, make sure to have your notifications turned on so that you can see my video for next week's rankings after next week's games. Because again, this week was very exciting. Over this past weekend, it was very exciting. This upcoming weekend does not look exciting at all. Again, the only game that I'm excited for is Missouri, South Carolina, just because South Carolina are now on the road and have a lot to prove. Outside of that, there's not a lot that draws my attention, but they are definitely trying to push stuff that may draw your attention just because of these funky looking numbers, guys. So yeah, it's been real. I will see you on here next week. I will see you on social media throughout the week. Deuces, y'all.